Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I hope you're all keeping safe and well this Thursday evening. We're trying a little thing today on Instagram to see if this can go live there as well, to allow the people who only follow us over on Instagram to be able to join in on these things live too. So if I seem distracted at any stage, it's because I'm tracking that live as well to see if there are. I mean, there's a lot of error messages coming up at the minute, and I'm kind of going to battle my way through that as we go. But I thought we'd go back to a more charming and dorky and nerdy and fun episode this week, looking at some tips for making our way through the dreaded G word in the work that we do here, and that is primarily guess. It is the word guess. I hate it with a passion, mostly because it is one of those words that betray the lack of confidence or the lack of work that we have put into whatever it is that we're doing at that particular time. It is a scapegoat issue. Good afternoon, bored. Hope you're keeping well, mate. So if that is of your interest and you're not already subscribed to the podcast or the channels that this goes out on, then do consider dropping us a follow, hitting the like button, and getting the old notification bell going to make sure you stay in touch with all of the details as and when they drop. We have our new communities going live that everyone is currently enjoying as well, with the Cerebral Socials happening on the Friday too. So if you're not already a part of the community, there is a free option and a paid option as well. The description will contain all of that information, and if you followed on through any day of the 100-day memory series, I'll be going through and updating the community links in that as well. We basically moved from school over to a platform where I have more control over, so it's all under one roof. But yes, coming back to the technical specifications of what we do here and the reality of the skill set of Sherlock Holmes, where the fiction ends and the reality can begin, right? Because I'm a big fan of taking inspiration from anywhere. Really, it's inspiration in that particular situation. So the only thing we need to think about in how we operate these particular skills and these particular attributes is the reality of deploying them nowadays, right? Just because the depiction of his memory palace was in one way, or Johnny Lee Miller's memory palace was in one way, I'm a big fan of the memoriatic depiction from Stephen King's Dreamcatcher as well. Just because that happens in movies and the technique has a root in reality does not mean that that is how it actually goes, right? So I have blended my work as an investigator. We currently run two companies rooted within this area, one rooted in the UK and one rooted in America. And this material is connected up specifically here for the nerdier. I am a massive dork at heart, right? So the reason I reference this as the language of behavior reading without guessing. Sorry, I've just seen that board. Board commenting as well. Anxious for the next Cerebral Social. The last one was very cool. Yeah, well, for those of you that don't know, a quick minute. If you're in either the free or the paid versions of the community, the Cerebral Social things that we do is basically where we all get together and just jam, just hang out, just play around with these skills. There's nothing formal, nothing curriculum based. We just talk shop, essentially. That's what it is. So if that is of interest, join up. The next one's tomorrow. So I would reason that you won't spend 5 minutes in learning about this particular discipline without hearing the term baseline, operating a baseline, and watching for deviations, right? It's one of these kind of a buzzword pieces that pops up regularly. That is, in my experience and in my opinion only, it is largely misunderstood. Right? When you think of a baseline, it changes from one position to the next. A Holmesian example that we can look for this here is in the Adventure of the Cardboard Box. Yes, I'm digging into the canon right now. In the Adventure of the Cardboard Box, Holmes notes that Miss Cushing's tone and her manner are exactly what would be expected from a respectable spinster, and only deviations from that norm could signal distress or deceit. Now, the misnomer in this particular situation is that there is any one particular signal that, oh, my sound isn't that good. Apologies, Nadia. Let's see if I can turn that up a bit. I mean, the volumes are the settings are the same that they always are. So rather than spend some time fixing that now, I'll run some tests afterwards, and the edited version will hopefully be a little bit more polished and put together. This is only the live version. It gets a bunch of bells and whistles put on it, and then it goes out properly tomorrow anyway. But thank you for joining us, Natty. Anyway, so the interpretation from this Holmesian example is that you can spot deceit. You can't. There is no one signal unifying example that indicates irrefutable deception. There isn't, right? If the Pinocchio analogy existed, my job would be, oh my God, it would be so much easier. Right. And so the understanding of the way the baselines are applied in this particular context, using the Adventure of the Cardboard Box as an example, is that the baseline for the respectable spinster indicates the possible deviations from it. But what doesn't get mentioned is it's the baseline for the respectable spinster in that particular situation and setting. Right? Because if it is, I mean, imagine yourself sat in in an interrogation room, right? And regardless of your guilt or innocence, the investigation is a serious one, whatever that is, right? Your baseline in terms of your behaviors and your signals in that particular situation is going to be worlds apart in terms of difference if you were actually doing these kinds of conversational tasks in a coffee shop or in a library or out and about anyway, right? So these things change, and that's the notion of the baseline thing that doesn't really get tracked as much. It should, but it doesn't really get tracked as much. So this is why the notion of a personal behavioral repertoire is more of an apt method for what we're doing here, right? Because my discussion of this particular material might sound very similar in this situation, or if I was out and about, or in my ice bath, or wherever I am, but there would be minute changes in the delivery of it that the baseline elements couldn't handle unless you calibrate accordingly. So if you develop a personal behavioral repertoire and then don't look for anything, there is a bias within that. If you become aware of the signals and the changes that are connected to it, then the outstanding principle, as I call it, is more is in a better position to be able to detail the kind of information that you need to use in whatever investigation that it is that you're carrying out. Right? When you think about it, in a multicultural workplace, normal can't be assumed. Right? Baselines have to be built through interaction and not any kind of stereotype, like the respectable spinster or anything else that exists in between. You have to calibrate to what's being shown to you in order to understand where these deviations truly lie, right? That's why I personally don't like as much to pick lies through body language. I prefer to use more contextual evidence and cross info. 100%, mate. 100%, right? This is where the notion of body language falls. It implies the conversion element, right? And I use the term reading people a lot, but again, people can't be read in the same way that you could a book. It's about understanding and moving with the individual. It's challenging. This is not easy. There's a lot of information to take stock of and process and change and work with. It's a lot like think of it this way. If you have a situation, whatever it is, and then your life carries on, and then you get given a time machine and you go back in time to that exact same situation, is it different or the same? Right, there might be a full spectrum of answers, but anyone that goes to the full length of that it's the same situation if I'm just going back in time to see it again. Right? Well, it can't be the same situation because there's another one of you there watching it. So the vantage points are different, the POV shift, the full thing changes changes accordingly, right? So I mean, if you want some more work in this area, look up the diagnostic utility experimental tests of variations in the wording of indirect questions from the Journal of Language and Social Psychology, 2014, might be 15. It's around that area, right? It's around that area. Next one. Context shapes behavior. In the Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, Holmes notices a battered old hat on Peterson's table and deduces the owner's decline in fortune based on the context of a once expensive hat now neglected. Right? Similar echoes to today might be somebody having like an Apple iPhone 7, but now, even though we're on like a 16, 17, because when the 7 came out, that was top of the line. But now it isn't. Right? Or a Louis Vuitton bag. Very expensive. Why would you let that get battered? Is essentially the question that's on the table. So the contextual elements of following that change is something that signifies the potentiality for the decline in fortune in these particular situations. A comment come in. Yeah, it's even kind of funny how bad people lie once you start noticing. Like they tell you something and then just post otherwise on social media. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a side note, I maintain, and this is only a personal thing, bear in mind, just a personal thing. I maintain that one of the easiest and potentially the most accurate ways of spotting a lie is your memory. Right? You've said this, but I remember last week you said this. Right? A lot of the current social delivery of deception in that area counts on the fact that you either won't remember something or be able to access the information. If you look at the contextual understanding of a behavior like speaking softly, that would be odd in a boardroom, but it might be normal in a place of worship, and vice versa. Right? I don't have to speak anywhere near as loud right now because we're here. There's a microphone. I appreciate that Nadia said that the sound wasn't coming in that well. But if we were out in a, I don't know, at a concert or something like that, and for some reason we're talking about behavioral science, go into that random piece of detail with me. I would need to adjust according, right? This I believe started with Albert Morabian. I mean, pay no attention to the percentage skewering of the way information is communicated, because that's nonsense. But this contextual shift and understanding of data and information, it has its roots in there. Another point would be congruence. Congruence being a gold standard of sorts, right? In Silver Blaze, Sherlock notes that the owner's verbal confidence in the security of the area, but has a contradictory nervousness in tone, in fidgeting hands, in signaling this kind of deeper anxiety. Now, in those situations, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a betrayal going on, right? Because he could be completely confident about the security, but there is any number of things that would contribute towards that anxiety at that particular time, were this a real life conversation. Just because somebody is talking about something that is designed to give the appearance of something else, does not mean that that there is an immediate connection to them, right? Let me just check this out. Hang on. No, I'm getting a system muted sign. Well, people could still hear me. People are joining in. You must be able to hear me. Making me paranoid now. It's because they're paranoid doesn't mean they don't have to. But to come back to this, in recruitment, right, there are mismatches between confident words and an insecure tone all the time. It can indicate overcompensation, embellishments, concealments, or just nervousness in response to the interview. If you're interviewing for a job that you really, really want and you've really got a lot of passion behind, well, I don't know, you might have a slight twinge of social awkwardness. Then there will be that kind of betrayal there in those particular situations. Right? For work on this, go to nonverbal communication, the unspoken dialogue. 94, I think. I haven't been in this area of the palace in quite some time. Another term that very often gets thrown around is the reviewing of your clusters, the cluster of behavior that you're seeing, right? How many items contribute towards the strength of the observation that it is that you have? There is a potentiality for an inherent bias within that, in that a good critical thinking point is for you to search for other explanations of explaining one thing. But if you're searching for specifically 5 things to explain it, there might be an inherent bias when there are only ever going to be 3 different ways of seeing the same thing. It will force the classic Holmesian quote of twisting facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. If you're forcing things in that particular scenario, in the Twisted Lip Holmes story, bear in mind, for those of you that don't know, Holmes doesn't judge Neville Sinclair's guilt on a single sign. He accumulates multiple observations, the ink-stained fingers, the absence of the wedding ring, the odd lodging location, all of that stuff before doing something else, right? The thing that keeps popping into my, look at that, I've still got the chalk on my hands from the workout I did before. I tried to wash it all off, but clearly I've failed. Reminds me of the Riggs and Murtaugh thing about evidence being a little thin, being a little thin. But then this is the dalliance of uh, of the cluster, right? And especially congruent with the notion of micro expressions, which for me, in my experience, is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's intellectually sexy, 100% it is, but the viability of its use in situations that are nothing to do with watching a video over and over again, it doesn't signal anything. You might spot a twitch, it might it might signal something, but in terms of its veracity and the strength of the information that's connected to it, I wouldn't wager anything within that, because it's not very congruent to what's going on. Right, the story that I always tell on this, mostly because it was a funny social situation to be in, but it does illustrate the point. Um, the short version: party a few years ago, lots of highfalutin businessmen knocking around, and there is the usual kind of grandstanding, the flicking of the wrist just to make sure the Rolex is on display, that kind of stuff. And there is one guy laughing a little too late, as a result of whatever it is that's being said, and he's leaking in terms of tight lids, erratic gaze, tightened jaw, born teeth, these types of expression things that go on. And you could infer that from that cluster and that collection of information that's connected towards expressions of concealment, that whatever it is that he was talking about at that stage, he's not got full confidence in, which is, I believe it was his business that they were talking about. Everyone's grandstanding about how successful they are. And as it turns out, because I can find these things out, as it turns out, he just farted. That was all. Right? That was all. Um, and again, if you want some work on this, you go to Albert Vrij or Vrij. I've never heard his second name said out loud, so I don't think he will ever watch this. But if he does, I apologize for butchering the pronunciation of your second name. Vrij. It's detecting lies and deceit, the pitfalls and opportunities. Then, of course, we have to consider, as point 5, the influence of cultural codes. Right, in The Adventure of the Yellow Face, Holmes acknowledges he failed to consider American cultural norms regarding secrecy and domestic matters, which is an error in interpreting behavior. Right, if you avoid eye contact, it could be respect in Japan, but evasiveness in the States. Without the kind of cultural literacy, deductions collapse. Right? How many choices are there in a 50-50 decision? Are there only two? Just something to think about. Right? Just something to think about. Um, there is a connection to this kind of cultural literacy and a lack of critical thinking around displays. My good, my well, I would call him a good friend. He was a wonderful human being. It's just we've not spoke in a while, with life being as it is. Matthew, he was on the podcast a while back. We spoke about The Office and cross cultural communication. It's a brief flyby of it. Wonderful bloke, um, and a German speaker as well. Um, this cultural literacy goes past the culture of origin, right, or the culture of where you grow up. There is a culture in the workplace. There is a culture in social groups. So to me, when I think of culture, just to help separate the information, I think of culture as like the English tradition or a Japanese tradition or a USA tradition or whatever it is. That's where I think of culture in that way. Just because there's a lot of information that's connected to it, I don't want the term culture to bleed over the information in my head. So when I'm thinking about it, there are connections towards like if you are a Japanese guy who has a big gaming hobby, works in finance, and uh, uh, trains in martial arts. Right? I was trying to think of polar opposite elements in that way. There is a lot of cultural determinants for the literacy of the communication in each situation. Right? So these are the things that you have to track. Look at um, uh, beyond culture. Um, E.T. Hall, I think it is. It's an Anchor Books thing. It's an Anchor Books thing, right? And the last one I want to leave is the concept of emotional leakage, right? In the adventure of the Abbey Grange, Holmes catches a lady. Um, what's her name? Lady. Oh God, Lady Brackenstall. Catches her momentary flash of relief when he hints that her lover might not be implicated before she regains her composure. Right? Video calls, freeze frames, pausing, rewinding, right? All of that stuff makes it harder to hide things. But in terms of the deployment of this kind of material, what I want you to think about is how um, present you actually are, how there you actually are, or are you in here way too much? Right? There's people that will try and tell me that I'm not aware of this much, or I can't notice all of this information that's going on around me, and that's an opinion, right? But if you stop, pause, just be a little quiet for a minute, right? Just take a minute every now and again. You'll hear cars a few blocks away. You'll hear chatter if there is any. You'll hear slight movements upstairs, the squeak of your chair, the turn of a page, the sound of a fan, right? All of these things are in any moment that you're in. And it only means that you need to stop and pause and slow things down to be able to get at it. This is the notion that, very simplistically, nootropics are connecting towards, to slow it down. When you can slow your brain waves down, more information can be processed. Right. That's why there is a journey towards the kind of theta state area for processing of cognitive information. Nootropics help that. But painters achieve that. Writers achieve that. Philosophers achieve that. People who meditate achieve that. So much of our lives that we live in is contributing towards the go, 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 now, 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 now. Just because it's fast doesn't mean it's better. So if you're going to calibrate towards the situation, you got to be able to slow this down, pick up some more stuff, actually be there to be able to see it in those moments, right? That's all final thoughts for today. Next time we'll pick this up, we'll go into a behavioral economy, behavioral ecology, the tale of preparedness. Because if you've not looked at Irving Goffman's work, you're missing out. There is the concept of time and testing hypotheses. All these elements directly, you can pull examples out of the Holmesian canon everywhere, and they're especially pertinent to what we do here. So, ladies and gents, if you've enjoyed any of that, do consider subscribing to the various channels that you find this on. It helps me keep bringing these episodes to you, and I'd love to see you in the community over there. The links will be around in the description boxes below. You can find it. There's free versions, paid versions. It's up to you which one you go for. Obviously, if you go for the paid one, you get the free one as well. Right? It's entirely up to you. Obviously, I'm an advocate of the more information you can play with, the more comprehensive your growth, knowledge, and understanding is going to be in this show. But practice. Don't just let these things be theoretical. Like, deliver these skills. And so, yeah, I'm going to love you and leave you. Take care.